Man, I never thought I would see the day when GTA 5 would not only be considered transphobic, but that the creators of the game, Rockstar Games themselves, would actually seem to agree with this assertion because in the 2022 remastered version of GTA 5, all of the transphobia is going to be removed, which in reality just means that Rockstar has gone ahead and removed the few trans NPCs that were in the game to begin with so that the player can't go and I guess beat them up or run them over or whatever it is that the people who wrote these articles calling GTA so transphobic were upset about. Now, part of the reason why this is so surprising to me and I'm so taken aback is, well, in case you don't know about GTA, if you've been living under a rock for, I guess, the past 2 decades, it is one of the most controversial video game series that has ever been released. Even if you go all the way back to 1997 with the first release of Grand Theft Auto, you can find news clips of people who would have experts on saying, oh, this game is so problematic, it's going to warp the brains of the youth, they're going to be going out there and running over hookers and doing drive-bys. Well, I can tell you this, I have personally been playing Grand Theft Auto since I was about 12 years old, and I haven't done a drive-by or run over a hooker in at least 4 months. So obviously, those claims made by these experts is completely bogus. But, in essence, GTA, it is an action-adventure game where you could do a whole bunch of crazy crimes. You can do carjackings, you can murder people, you could steal military vehicles. In essence, it's pretty much a felony simulator. But despite all of this controversy, the game keeps on making sales. In fact, the latest release, GTA 5, was one of the highest grossing video games that have ever been created. So you would think by now that Rockstar Games would be like Matt Stone and Trey Parker is with South Park, that they would have enough fuck you money that they don't have to care about any of the controversy and that they can just keep on pumping out the game because they really want to. But no, Rockstar folded. They went ahead and removed all of the transphobia from their game. Now, there's a few things that you should know about the trans NPCs that were in GTA 5 and really all of the NPCs in every single release of GTA ever, which is that all of them are a stereotype. Okay, if you find a black NPC that is driving down the street in any Grand Theft Auto game, chances are he's going to be wearing really baggy clothes, he's going to be sagging his jeans, he's probably going to be driving a beat-up car with rims that cost more than the car itself, and he's probably going to be listening to the rap station when you carjack him. Same thing goes for Mexicans. They're probably going to be driving some beat-up pickup truck, and they're going to be listening to the Spanish radio station, or they're going to be landscapers. Fun fact, the majority of the landscapers in GTA 5, even the landscaper, like your landscaper, at least Michael's landscaper, is Mexican. So they buy into all of the stereotypes. It's just like South Park, where they pretty much make fun of everybody. So you can't really say that they are bigoted or that they're targeting a specific group. No, everybody gets it. But the really weird thing about these outrage articles is that the trans characters in GTA 5, they play a really minor role in the game. I'm honestly more surprised that there's not outrage articles claiming that trans people aren't represented enough in GTA 5 and that they're not given a wider role. Because you can play through and complete the entire game without ever really having to interact with any of the trans characters. For the most part, you're only going to find them outside of the club Cockatoos, usually at night. So the whole premise that GTA has, or Rockstar Games rather, has programmed in transphobia into the game is pretty disingenuous. The first paragraph here, they complain about the gameplay of the video that they saw on YouTube where this person was playing and they were brutalizing these trans sex workers for their own amusement. And then somebody left a comment on that video saying that you're doing God's work. Clearly, this is some kind of role play that the person who was playing that game at the time was doing in the video, and it has nothing to do with the game's actual storyline. If GTA is transphobic because it is possible for a player to go and beat up a trans NPC, then GTA must also be racist, as it must also be sexist, and every other type of phobic that there is under the sun, because you can beat up any type of NPC you want. Their NPCs are pretty diverse. Also, I don't think that the person who wrote this article has really played this Grand Theft Auto game at all, or done even the most basic research into this so-called transphobia that's in the game. Because if they would have done that, they would have realized that the trans people that hang out outside of cockatoos are not actually sex workers, as they refer to them. In fact, there are no trans sex workers in the entire GTA 5 game. The closest thing you'll find to a trans sex worker is a trans stripper that is at some club, I think the Vanilla Unicorn or something like that. And you can't take her home. She's one of the few strippers that you can't take home. So yeah, she's not a sex worker. She's just a stripper, or an erotic dancer, if you want to use the fancy word. And also, it's worth noting that the trans NPCs that hang out outside of cockatoos are some of the more aggressive NPCs in the game, because if you stand just within a couple of meters of them, they will attack you unprovoked. They're about as aggressive as the gangsters that you find in the various hoods around Los Santos. The majority of NPCs in the game, they're usually very timid. Like, they will run the moment that anything pops off, or like if you run into them, they might say something to you, but they'll just keep on walking. They're not going to square up and try to fight you. So portraying the trans NPCs outside of cockatoos as these innocent people is kind of weird, considering that the majority of NPCs, when you encounter them, they're going to be running away, and you're probably going to end up shooting them in the back. It's really weird that that is seen as okay, but then defending yourself from a group of trans NPCs as they try to jump you is not okay. And you know what else is probably going to be really problematic? The modding community. You see, GTA, at least the PC version, is a very moddable game. You can install all kinds of different crazy things. You can play through the game as Superman or the Incredible Hulk, and also program in their superpowers. So something like changing character models is really, really easy to do, and I wouldn't be surprised if somebody comes out with a mod that creates more trans character models. Maybe there will even be a mod that replaces every single NPC in the game with a trans character model. And because this is something that's developed by the community, like this isn't something that Rockstar really has any power or any control over, the character models for these trans people might be a lot more offensive and a lot more stereotypical than the ones that Rockstar originally put into it. And I wouldn't be surprised if this mod ends up being really popular, because things like this, when you try to censor video games, and the censorship is as easy to circumvent as installing a mod, it tends to kind of have the Streisand effect. You're trying to take away trans people from the game, but watch, the modding community is probably going to introduce a whole lot more and make the game a whole lot more problematic. And this really makes you wonder what's going to be in stage for GTA 6. How much more woke is it going to become? Maybe they're just going to remove every single minority NPC from the entire game. Maybe they'll just replace them all with green humanoids. That way, when you go and shoot them in the back or you run them over with your car, nobody can be offended, because in today's world, you can't make anything that's even slightly offensive, or else your game might get canceled. Follow me on Odyssey, like and comment, tag the algorithm. Have a great day.